Specifically, I want to talk to you about full moons in general. Full moon is probably the first thing we really notice in astrology. It's when the sky is bright, and while we can't necessarily see every star because of the brightness of the moon becomes so bright we notice it. And so it's a time of high energy. And as you might guess, because that full moon is so big in center, you got to ask yourself why. And then you've got to talk about the sun. Because, of course, with modern science, we know that the moon is shining so brightly during a full moon because it is capturing all of this light from the sun and reflecting it back to us. Not capturing all the light the sun's giving out, but so much light that we on the earth can see that reflection powerfully. And that's how we know what the power of the sun and the moon is. The sun's power is to shine, is to express, is to light and give energy to all that's going on. And the moon's power is reflective. It is the power of bringing in and showing back. So every time that we are being reflective, every time that we are tuning in to how the outside world has made us feel, either physically tuning in to the sensation of warm or cold, tuning in to the energy of the people around us, we are using the moon. It rules our intuition, it rules our emotions, it rules all of the reflective parts of ourselves. So as you can tell, during a full moon, we have the sun giving light to the moon and the moon giving light to us. When that happens, the sun and moon are on opposite sides of the sun. Its very opposition is what gives birth to that power and that deep, bright light. In the same way for ourselves and psychologically, we have in opposition more dynamic, more polar energy pulled between two ends of the spectrum. And as in human experience in psychology, opposites attract. Now, I'm not saying the sun and moon are pulling towards each other, just that in their very opposition, there is an intense energy that both pulls those two opposites together, one represented by the sun, the other represented by the moon, pulls those opposites together even as there is a dynamic tension between them. So every time we have a full moon, what we have is the sun and moon in opposing signs. And so now I'm going to just do a little bit of talking about those, what we call zodiacal pairs. There are 12 signs of the zodiac. It starts with Aries in March and goes all the way around to Pisces it starts in February and ends in the beginning of March. Those 12 signs all form pairs. And so each time, for example, we have a full moon with the moon in Aries, we have the sun in Libra. And every time we have a full moon in Libra, we have the sun in Aries. So we can talk about these pairs as two halves. And each of those pairs gets 2 full moons in a year, one on one side of the pair and one on the other. So let's talk a little bit about what makes those opposites. Before we can go into what those pairs are, let me tell you why they are paired. In astrology, those 12 signs that we talk about so often are broken into 4 different elements. There is fire and earth, air and water. These 4 elements are sometimes called the masculine elements and feminine elements, where fire and air are masculine and water and earth are feminine. We're not getting into genders here when we're talking about elements, rather that we describe in Western culture that masculine elements have that sense of a 2 and the phallic symbol and the outreaching. The air moves out and sun moves out and fire moves out. And the feminine elements contain. There's a sense of the 3 there of a container, of the pelvic cradle, of the reception, of the reflection, and those things are like the moon. They're like the earth. They're like a cup of water, or the shape that earth can take. They're receptive elements. And so we've already started to make this definition where the sun is masculine and outgoing, and the moon is reflective and accepting, or receptive. And that power in itself divides the elements. You might guess then that when we have the moon in either an earth or a water element, the moon's a little more comfortable because the moon is receptive and so are those elements. You might also guess that when the sun is in fire or air signs, it's aggressive or it's expressive or its outgoing energy is more honored. So now we've kind of divided the zodiac in half. Let me talk about one other way to divide the zodiac. The zodiac gets divided into three categories of leader as cardinal, of fixed as the maintenance, and mutable as the communicator. And so these three breakdowns of fixed, cardinal, mutable, and the four elements, when combined, give us 12 combinations. And each one of the signs has both a leader, cardinal, a fixed maintainer, or a mutable communicator, as well as one of those elements. That's a lot of information, and you've got a diagram on the screen that's been showing you this. Here's why that matters. In every full moon, the sun and the moon are in compatible signs. They're either both in the masculine elements, fire and air, or they're both in the feminine elements, water and earth. But what happens is they share the same element. So in an Aries full moon, the moon is in Aries, the sun is in Libra. That's fire for Aries and air for Libra, but they're both cardinal signs, they're both leaders. So what you have in this tension is that they agree that we should be moving out into the world, but one of them wants to move out in a passionate way, in a fiery way. That's Aries, cardinal fire. And the other wants to move out in an intellectual or verbal way. That's cardinal air and Libra. And so the tension comes from pulling two leaders together, incompatible but not the same elements. In the same way that Aries, cardinal fire, is in a tension with Libra, cardinal earth, a cardinal air, the next elements happen in fixed earth and fixed water. Taurus is fixed earth, and there is nothing more stubborn than a Taurus. But that means that there's nothing that Taurus can't endure maintaining and finishing that brilliant work that the cardinal sign started, but went off and started something else and did not finish. For the cardinal signs are great at beginnings and not so good at finishing. And so the Taurus says, oh, I'm persistent enough, I'm stubborn enough, I am fixed earth, I will finish what we started. And so you have that stubbornness of Taurus. And when the moon is in Taurus, you've got this calm, stable, grounded earth energy. Unfortunately, that works only a little bit because the sun is in Scorpio when the moon is in Libra for a full moon. And Scorpio is just as stubborn. It's just as loyal, but it doesn't care about the facts. It cares about the feelings. A Scorpio's loyalty is an emotional commitment. I'm on your team, or a not so positive, I am never on your team. For that loyalty that people accuse Scorpios of having grudges with is just as loyal to who they don't like as to who they do. And so with the sun in Scorpio, we have a loyalty, a stubbornness, a fixedness of emotion. But with the moon in Taurus, we have a stubbornness, a persistence, a fixity of practicality. And so the tension in the Taurus and Scorpio axes is, do we want to be comfortable and practical, or do we want to be passionate and intense and loyal? And both of them have to resolve that answer. In other words, they have to find a way to say, let's maintain in both a practical and emotionally satisfying way. In the same way that in Aries and Libra, they say, let's be leaders in both a passionate and intellectual way. Gemini and Sagittarius is going to give us the next pair, and this is a pair of mutables. Mutable signs are so important because if the cardinal signs are leading us onward, ever onward more, and the fixed signs are saying, but we ain't finished here, stay, maintain, complete. The mutable signs is what stops the whole zodiac from fracturing. You need the mutable sign to be able to go between. In that sense, it is some of the energy of Mercury, where the ability of Gemini and the twins to talk both to the cardinal leader and to the fixed maintainer. The Sagittarius to move between the leading fire that's moving forward always, and the holding on and sticking to its guns, that type of persistent fixed sign. Only Sagittarius with its movement between can connect them. So when we have a full moon in Gemini and Sagittarius, we have not some great decision making, rather great communicating. They're not as interested in getting an answer as they are in exploring the possibilities. They're mutable, they're moving between, but they haven't decided to stay any one place. And so the fixed signs are going, why are you keep moving? And the leader sign saying, why aren't you making decisions? And the mutable sign says, because we wouldn't survive if somebody wasn't making sure that you two were talking to each other. But when we have a full moon and mutable signs, the problem becomes it's really hard to get a decision and really easy to get distracted. Gemini wants to keep talking and chatting. Those twins can see both sides of any story. And so Gemini, as a characteristic, is often what some people call a long Midwestern goodbye, where you say goodbye, and they say goodbye to this person, and oh wait, when are we going to see you again, and say goodbye again. And Sagittarius is just the opposite. It's let's go. We're here, and then we're here somewhere else. They move fast in their action instead of fast with their words. And so as Gemini is having this long Midwestern goodbye, Sagittarius is already out the door, maybe in the car and maybe home before Gemini has finished their goodbyes. And so Sagittarius is pushing us to go here, go there. Don't settle on a place, go and find them all out. And Gemini's still chatting about all the things that we could find out. That tension we'll feel whenever we have a Sagittarius new full moon or a Gemini full moon. And now that I've talked you through what cardinal new moons are like, what fixed new moons are like, or what mutable new moons are like, we do it all again. But this time, I'm going to talk about cardinal water and cardinal earth, and that's Cancer and Capricorn. A Cancer full moon has the most power because the moon is ruled by Cancer, and so the moon has the most power when it is in Cancer. So when we have the moon in Cancer, we are always at a more powerful lunar phase. We're more emotional, we're more reflective, we are more receptive. But make no mistake, that doesn't mean that Cancer's moons are easy always, although they are the most comforting. The reason is that there is full moons and new moons, and when we're talking about a full moon, absolutely, Cancer full moon is broad and abundant and full, just like a full moon is. But we aren't talking about Cancer new moons, which is as dark as anything else. In this Cancer full moon, let me tell you what you've got going. You have got the perfect mother. Think of the moon and the ocean and the salt water as the womb of the world. That's the ocean where all life was born is the most affected by the moon. And so this Cancer cardinal leading water is helping us make inroads into our emotional selves. Think of a mother who teaches us how to manage our emotions. There is the full moon in Capricorn or Cancer. But when the moon is in Cancer, for a full moon, the sun is in Capricorn, and Capricorn is not emotional. It is practical. It is cardinal earth, and it says, have you got a good retirement plan? How are you taking care of these things? The Capricorn cardinal earth is very practical. A lot of people think of it as Father Christmas. Let me give to you. Let me lead and bring to you all these material benefits. And so you get this sense of generosity and materialism, but also stability and of planning for a better, stronger, stabler, more abundant future. And we have to answer that tension in a Cancer full moon and in a Capricorn full moon. How will we handle our emotions and where our emotions want to lead us? And how will we handle our stability and our need for security and where that will lead us? It's a powerful Cancer full moon that we'll all face. It is also a powerful full moon in Capricorn that we face because the sun is not so certain how to handle the Cancer energy, but we have for that time the sun shining its light in the cardinal water, the sun looking and thinking and expressing the emotions that Cancer and the moon reflect so much more. And we have our emotions when the full moon is in Capricorn, so deeply reflecting what will we do with this leading, powerful, emotional need for stability and assurance in a future. I've got two more pairs to talk about. Leo is fixed fire, and it's represented by the sun. So you can imagine whenever the sun's in Leo, we get an extra burst, which means that Aquarius full moons are some of the most powerful because the sun is in Leo and the Aquarius moon is reflecting all of that bright Leo energy. But Leo is fixed fire, is stable passion. It is a passion that endures. It is the spotlight that does not move off the main character. And it's charming. Everybody wants to get that spotlight on Leo because we enjoy them. Aquarius, on the other hand, is fixed air, and that is the scientist. That is the exploring, analytical. I'm going to keep looking and analyzing and dissecting and exploring what this intellectual academic facts mean. And so we have charm with the fixed Leo fire, and we have curiosity and scientific analysis in the fixed air. And those are a tension we have to resolve, whether the sun is in Leo and the moon's in Aquarius, or the sun is in Aquarius and the moon is in Leo. One more pair to talk to you about now, and that's the mutable earth and water. Mutable earth is Virgo and mutable water is Pisces. Both of them are very valuing of service. They're receptive, they're accepting, and both the mutable will, I'll adapt to you, and the elements that are feminine recepting make these full moons very powerful, but very determined by what's around us. Because both Virgo and Pisces want to help, but because one is earth and practical and one is water and emotional, they're helping in different ways. The Virgo says, exactly how much money do you need to pay off that debt? Exactly how much wood should I bring to help board up the windows? And Pisces says, how can I help you? Let me give you a hug. How are you feeling? Can I go do that for you? How do I make you feel better? And so you can see why you're once again looking at the tension between let me honor your feelings and let me honor your practical needs. Except in the mutable signs, there's not the decision making, but rather the variety of exploring. The full moon in Virgo, then, is a very emotional about the details, the small practical facts. Virgo is a detail sign, and the moon there makes us very emotional about what happens about these details. This is when somebody gets really upset because you didn't put soy milk in their coffee and instead put cow's milk, and they can't drink cow's milk. And in Pisces, that mutable water is a willingness to sacrifice. We feel the Piscean age that we are just coming to the end to was an age of martyrs and the giving up of things for those we emotionally love. It's when somebody's sitting there and a kid comes up and says, can I have a drink? Can I have a piece of your food? And you go, yeah, sure, have some of my cookie. That willingness to sacrifice and give when you're being receptive to the asking is what mutable water is. So when the sun is in mutable water, we're very dreamy and idealistic in our thoughts, and we're very emotional about the details when the full moon in Virgo reflects that tension to the sun in Pisces. And we've got some of these full moons coming up very soon. So let me tell you, there'll be another video in just a little bit. You'll notice I've gone through every pair, which is 6 sets. And remember, those can be a full moon on one side or a full moon on the other. Wherever the moon is, the sun is the opposite in a full moon. And I hope these pairs help you understand perhaps what full moons have the most power for you to use, perhaps what you can do to reconcile these tensions. And in this next video, I'll put dates to them and help you understand how to make those high energy, high tension, deep contrast times work for you by finding a way to resolve the paradox, to find a way to be in service both practically and emotionally for Virgo and Pisces, to find a way to have a leading fire of the Aries and the leading intellect of Libra. all of those possibilities are going to happen for us, or at least be challenged for us in the coming year. Can you resolve this tension? I'm confident you guys can, so I look forward to talking to you, and check out a 2024 full moon for a little more dates and specifics about what the other planets are doing that affects each of those full moons. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'm very appreciative that you joined me.